Hey kids, welcome back to a February bonus issue of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% unbiased, completely impartial, and thrilled to have a guest tonight host, Oldman Shoutingatclouds. Joining me as usual is MJ.
Things are really great in Tiger Town right now. Happy to be here.
And G.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. It's February, which means it's Olympics, which we're talking about tonight. So I did wear my Olympic shirt. I wore this back in Canada Day and kind of explained it, but for all the new people that have not been around, we weren't listening to us back in the dark days of July. This is left over from when I lived in Calgary for the 1988 Olympics, and we might talk about that with our guest a little bit later. And it's the Canada flag on the front and all of the other before and after Olympics behind it. So we have Albertville, we have Sapporo, and on the back there's a couple of more. This thing is now, I can't believe it, but it's close to 40 years old and hanging in. So that's not bad. And it's, not from Costco. So that's all right.
It looks like a classic. Yes. And as I said, we've got a bit of an interview going here. The GT had to lobby me hard on this one because I think the whole thing of it is a pretext. It's just so that we get 2 Calgary fans on the podcast and they can outnumber us now. But our guest, Ken Childs, who tells me has never been to a Calgary loss. They've won every time he's been there. And he's here to talk to us a little bit about the connection between bobsledding and the CFL. So where do we go from there? Do you have something you'd like to start with, Ken, or do you want someone to throw a question at you?
No, I also did not get this at Costco. It was this is by far the best Indigenous people's hoodie out of all of them. Their best logo by far.
Got to agree with that.
A little disappointed that we're not having as good of an off season as Hamilton is.
Well, I don't know.
Hey. Yeah. And winning the off season gets you nothing, as we know.
Yeah.
True.
All right. So who's going to start out and talk to Ken about what's going on here?
Well, also, I lobbied hard.
Appreciate that.
Hard. I'm just, for those who don't know Ken, he is a CFL fan and a sliding fan and not Canadian. I would actually love to start if we could maybe talk about how you even found CFL football and more specifically the Stampeders and not the Riders or the Ticats.
So it's a few things. My connection to Calgary actually goes back to the 88 Olympics and how I got involved in sliding sports and all that in general. I was about 9 years old at the time of the 88 Olympics. I was really sick for like 2-3 weeks there, and it just happened to coincide with the Calgary Olympics. So I was in bed pretty much the whole time, watched most of the Olympics on TV, as much as you got at the time, which is nowhere near everything. Anyone that ever complains now about how much Olympics they can watch now needs to just stop. Because back in the day, you had it on one channel, you watched whatever they showed you, and you liked it, and that was it. But I was big into race cars and big into racing, and I saw bobsled on TV at Calgary, and I was like, man, that is awesome. They're kind of like race cars. They go real fast, and I was kind of hooked. And in the States, we had the ABC's Wide World of Sports, and so every winter, bobsled or luge or whatever would just happen to be on once in a while, and you never really knew. In the TV guide, it just said Wide World of Sports, so you'd watch it, hope to God it was something you enjoyed. Once in a while, you get like Skijorian or something like that, equally cool. There'd be bobsled once in a while, and so on and so forth. You'd kind of watch it. We had Speed Channel for a while, and that had every winter. And I'd be watching, and decided in 2010, right after Vancouver, like, I'm going to go to the next World Cup event in Lake Placid. And I went to try to do that, and I went online to find information, and there was none. And it's either the best or worst decision I've ever made in my life, depending on what day you ask me. I was like, yeah, I'll do it myself. And at the time, I was working for a couple motorsports websites on the side. My day job's in IT, completely unrelated to anything else I do. I reached out. Jeff Bodine at the time was doing the bobsled project here for the USA team. And so I kind of used that in like my NASCAR stuff to kind of get involved and started my little website. And here I am 15 later talking to you guys. As for the Stampeders themselves, I'm originally from Western Massachusetts and kind of
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he started off in BC, but like really had like real success in Calgary. So you heard about it and you heard about the Stampeders. And so I started paying attention then. And that's kind of, between one and the other and everything else, just kind of how I ended up being a Stampeders fan. Went to my first game in 2022. Finally got up there for a game. The team rolled out the red carpet for me and could not have been nicer. They were wonderful. Max Campbell was with the team at the time. He reached out to me and we did an interview and stuff, and it was super cool. So went out there. We won that game against Montreal, and VA was actually the quarterback for Montreal at that time. I was sitting right near the end zone, and there's a last-second pass into the end zone that got batted away to secure the Stampeders win. And that was the opening day of the 22 season. And then this year I went for the big game against the Riders at the time, where the Stamps were like one game back or whatever, and we won that one in kind of a blowout, actually. And yeah, so it's the team's 2-0 in the games I've been to. I've tried to parlay that into either free tickets or free flights. Hasn't happened yet. Working on it though. Really working the angles on that one. If you happen to be a Stampeders front office person and you happen to be seeing this right now, I got a direct flight from Raleigh to Calgary now. Hook me up. Undefeated season if you can get me up there enough.
I like it. And I got to admit, I'm more impressed with your undefeated record knowing it's in the last few years. If it was back in the mid 14, 15, 16, like most of those were pretty much undefeated.
Undefeated in games I've attended. Down here, it's CFL Plus has really helped out a lot as far as that goes. Before that, though, the ESPN had all the games on the stream or whatever. So the last, goodness, I don't even know how long now. It's been a lot easier to watch games than it used to be. It used to be you just once in a while ESPN2 had a game on, and you just got to watch whatever happened to be on. And then, God, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, ESPN started having on their streaming service every game. And then once in a while, it'd be on like ESPN2, but the rest was streaming. And now with CBS Sports and CFL Plus and all that, I've got a whole rig set up if it's on CFL Plus so I can watch it on my TV still. And yeah, it's really, really easy now to be a CFL fan in the States compared to what it used to be 15, 20 years ago for sure.
So Ken, you picked a great time in the 90s in those eras to be a Stampeder fan because that was a tremendous team. And not only was there Doug, but there was everybody else that went with him in those times, Stepanjis and Pitt and Allen and all those guys. And the defense was unbelievable at the same time. So you picked a really easy time to become a fan for sure.
Yeah.
Unlike
it didn't hurt, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, good. I guess just a couple of quick questions about television, only because you were mentioning it. I've always been curious, is in the U.S., when you watched on ESPN, was it simply a rebroadcast of the TSN?
Yeah, all we get is a TSN broadcast. Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't really get any of the pregame stuff. We get, if game time's like set to like 7 o'clock, it comes on at 7. We get, we'll get whoever happens to be in the studio for like a quick 2-3 minute hit. And then it's off to the game or whatever. We don't really get any post game. We don't get even the Grey Cup. We only get maybe a half hour before the game starts compared to the better. I was amazed when I went up for my first game. I got back to the hotel. I always stay at the Holiday Inn Express right over the bridge, right by where the C train stops. And I get back over there, turn on the TV, and there's like just post game on. I'm like, my goodness, this is amazing. And really got to enjoy that. I've eaten my weight in everything over at Nick's. Really, really try to do it right.
And did you ever make it to any of the games in the mid 90s during the American expansion?
I did not know. Okay. I was very much, I didn't get out of New England really until the late 90s. So when I went to college down here in North Carolina. So I didn't really get to go to any of those. I'd see it it'd be on TV a little more prominently back then because there were American teams, but still nothing compared to what we have now.
Right on. Okay, cool.
So yeah, I guess I'm really excited to talk to this because, like you, watching Olympics was on CBC, and I didn't get a choice. Like I didn't there was no TSN. Like I didn't have cable. I had CBC, and whatever sport was on. And a lot of times it was the most random, like speed track, like speed skating, like 10,000 meter, or some random like we're doing like alpine skiing, and now we're off to like biathlon, and then now we're off to the track. So it is kind of interesting that you get to just see a bunch of different things, and I think everyone in Canada knows about bobsled because of Cool Runnings.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that, but also you guys have had some quality teams over the years as well.
Yeah, so I mean, there's been some really great drivers like Pierre and Justin Cripps, and who else did I have down? And Lyndon Rush. But we're here to talk CFL players, so there's a little pipeline happening.
There is. It's this year. You've got. I'm going to say 3.5, and I'm only saying 3.5 because you got Lucas Stoikos, who was drafted but never actually played. He got cut by the Lions after being drafted out of Toronto. Went to University of Toronto, played there, got drafted in one of the later rounds. Just got cut before the season started. It happens, you know. But you've got Jay Dearborn, who's piloting a sled. He actually had a really good season this year in North America Cup. So you have your World Cup, which is the all around the world, all the tracks and all that. And then there's a Europe Cup and a North America Cup. A North America Cup used to be the 4 tracks. You know, it's a very bitter subject for a lot of people. The Calgary track, everyone very much wants to open still. Everyone's very disappointed it's not. So
it's closed?
Yeah. It's very closed. They started doing a renovation in hopes of getting this Olympics or the last one. One of the Olympics. Yeah. It was this one.
We're supposed to have this Olympics.
Yeah. And then when they decided they weren't going to continue trying to do that, they took all the funding for it and put it toward other stuff. So the track just remains kind of sitting there. You'll know if I hit the Powerball down here specifically because all of a sudden construction is going to start working on that track again. Because literally anybody that's been to the track involved in the sport loves the track there. And nobody has a bad thing to say about it. Even people that haven't slid well there they love the track. It's one of the few tracks on the bobsled tour that's actually positioned like near a big city. You know, there's Park City got that one pretty close to Salt Lake City and all that. But really the track in Calgary is the one you can be on the track and look out and there's the city. And so it's kind of a special in that way. But then the track itself, a lot of people just have a lot of great memories. Obviously, Cool Runnings is something that, especially by now, anyone in the sport watched as a kid. They all know it from that. So it's got a lot of special things there. But North America Cup's got 3 tracks, Lake Placid, Park City, and Whistler. And so Jay Dearborn raced full season on the NAC tour, won a bunch of races, and actually qualified in for the Olympics ahead of one of Canada's World Cup guys because he just scored so many points with so many wins in second places or whatever. Ironically, the guy he usually lost to was Shane Pitter, the Jamaican guy. Jamaica's actually got a legit bobsled team now, like legit winning races. Again, North America Cup, not the most competitive of tours, a lot of development and sliders or whatever there. Jay definitely kind of on the more development side. He hasn't done a lot of racing outside of North America, if any, but he's a good pilot and knows what he's doing, as Shane Pitter is as well, the Jamaican kid. But Jay's got 3 seasons, 2 in Saskatchewan and 1 in Hamilton. And then they've also Shaq Murray Lawrence, who's been almost anywhere in the CFL at some point or another. It seems like anyway. I think it may just be 3 teams, but he's been all around. And then Keaton Brugling made the team this year. 7 receptions on 7 targets by Levi Mitchell this year. Really
a lot of good blocking.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, his most reliable target all season should have been thrown to him more. I think he may have had a touchdown as well. I remember celebrating that one if it happened. It may have been brought back, but either way, he got a ball in the end zone. That's all I care about. But legit, like throughout the years, though, you've had all these guys. Jesse Lumsden, for instance, very decorated bobsled brakeman, big CFL guy. You've had a couple of guys, even on the American team, that played in the States, went up and played a year or 2 in the CFL, came back and pushed sleds. It's really, and it goes back, you look back years and years and years, and it's just like this small little funnel of CFL guys that usually aren't starters or things like that, but have a shot at, or trying to do something else. I think the reason you don't see this in the States more in part is because contracts in the NFL are just bigger and there's more concern about liability and stuff like that. Everyone in the CFL is on a short contract. Usually, unless you are a star player, you're not on a very high paying contract. So you get a guy like Keaton, who's been a legitimate, decent CFL player for a few years now, but also kind of once the season's over, the CFL season ends mid-November. That is right when the bobsled season picks up. And so it's real easy to go from one to the other, where the NFL, you have your season goes through the end of December. If you want to get involved on a team, you're going to miss half a season. So I think that's part of it as well. But the team this year really has, you've got 4 of your 8 men's bobsledders have some CFL experience this season. For the team this season.
Ken, is that something that happens because the 2 sports match up well, or is it more that there's a connection's been made and it just, the pipeline keeps feeding?
I think it's a little of both. I think that the guys see this as a thing they can do, and they have outside of some fame and whatever in the CFL that they could maybe have. And again, you don't generally have a lot of guys that are bigger names in the CFL. They're kind of your role players and things like that. But they're solid guys. But what you need in bobsled, especially as a brakeman, is a level of explosiveness. You sit there quiet, and then you hit the sled, and you got, I'm going to say 50 meters. It depends on the track, but about 50 meters to go as hard as you can. Get in the sled, get quiet. And so your football players, especially guys that are currently active training football players, that is exactly what they do for football. There's not a lot of different weightlifting, different training that you have to go to where, from being a quality CFL player to being a quality push athlete in bobsled. So I think that, and I think a lot of those guys have seen this. Jesse Lumsdens and those guys be quality brakemen, have a shot at medals. Jesse, obviously, those guys have all got World Cup medals. They've got, they've been in the Olympics, all that. That's all things that they can do without having to really change much of what they do during the football season or outside of the football season. A lot of that training is in the off season for the bobsled is push, sprint training, some push training, pushing the stuff, but it's a lot of speed training. And that's what a lot of those guys are doing anyway. You're mostly seeing your linebackers, running backs, guys like that are usually the people that are trying to get into bobsleigh later on.
Yeah, because was Jesse Lumsden the first one to move from CFL to?
Oh no, there's a few earlier on.
Okay,
That's Jesse's. I think by far one of the more decorated ones, if not the most decorated one. There's been some earlier. I'm trying to remember. There's a couple names from like the 80s and things like that of guys that had been doing it. So it's been a thing for a little while now. I think you're seeing a little more success now from some of these guys, in part because the way football weight training is, your linebackers nowadays are far more explosive than they were 25 years ago. All these guys just now are, you got offensive linemen that could easily outrun me in a 40-yard dash, giving up 100 pounds to me, they can still blow right past me like it's nothing. So your linebackers and guys like that are just big, explosive guys. This sport is perfect for them. I'm surprised we don't have more, but there's a pretty good lineage now of our CFL guys in the sport, and I don't see why that's going to stop anytime soon.
Ken, do you know the history of the name Samuel Jaguar? Samuel Jaguar?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Sam. Yep.
Why don't you talk about him a little bit if you could?
Almost kind of like a Lumsden deal. Just dude who came in from the CFL, and Sam's another guy that was just a big dude that could push the heck out of a sled. And God, I can't remember how long ago he retired from bobsled, but it's been a little bit now. But just another guy that's like a Jesse Lumsden, just a dude that's big, strong guy, can push the heck out of a sled because that's what they do. You go to watch linebackers and stuff, they're pushing those big matted sleds. It's not a lot different. It really isn't.
Yeah, I just found him an interesting case because I'm not sure if there's anybody else could make his claim, which is, he's an Olympic athlete, an NFL Super Bowl champion, and a CFL Grey Cup champion all at the same time. So
I forgot about the NFL championship.
Yeah. He was.
I always forget about that.
He was in 2010. I think it was Baltimore that he played with at the time.
Yeah.
So,
I forgot about that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then he played two Grey Cups with Hamilton, of course. So yeah.
So, but yeah, it just goes to show though, those guys are they're athletes. It's a lot of your European countries have a lot of guys that come from. The Latvians always have a lot of decathletes. And bobsleigh in general at least used to have a lot of decathletes. Fewer now as you get more people from different sports, but like decathlon is one of those sports where you have to be kind of good at everything. So you're not just training as a sprinter, so a lot of the European countries have those guys. George Fleischhauer for Germany's a 400-meter hurdle guy, which that's a hulking human being of a person. And but I think in the States and in Canada, somebody with a strong football background kind of has that advantage if they're just used to those explosive, moves and everything to begin with.
Yeah, so I guess, like, for people who don't know, like, we're talking heavy sleds. How heavy are these sleds, and how fast are they going, and how steep is that track? Because this seems... I've been to the Calgary track, and it's, like, almost vertical.
Yeah, so the sleds are going to depend on 2-man or 4-man. Your heavier sleds are pushing around 600 pounds. I forget what that works out to kilograms. But once you get everybody in the sled, it's about 1,300 pounds worth of people and sled going at once. Your 2-man sled is lighter, obviously, but it's a big, heavy sled. So in cool runnings, when they're carrying the sled on their shoulders or whatever, that would never actually happen. The sleds are way too heavy. Never would happen. They're very heavy. So you need to be a big, strong guy to get these things moving. You see, and part of it is the sled has a weight tolerance. It's got to be between like X and Y. The heavier side involves how much does it have to be with everybody in it. So the bigger your people in the sled, the lighter your sled gets to be. There's also a minimum tolerance of the sled weight as well. What used to happen back in like you just had a bunch of like 280-pound dudes all in the sled, like, and it got kind of comical. So they started setting rules on all that kind of stuff. But the tracks themselves vary wildly in steepness. A lot of them, like the Calgary track, God, it's about like a 10% grade most of the way down. But you have certain parts of the track that are steeper. Winterberg, for instance, your first 5 curves very flat, and then you hit the 5th curve, and it's like a 3-story drop, just right downhill. The track in Cortina that they'll be at for the Olympics is pretty steadily graded. There's a couple big drops, but nothing too crazy. But they all vary wildly. All of them have what you call a labyrinth section, which is like a left, right, left kind of thing. They all have an uphill portion usually. Except for even St. Moritz does a little bit. St. Moritz is the one track that's still built out of snow and ice every year. They literally go in end of November and start packing snow and ice, and they make the same track every year roughly. And that's got a little uphill section, but nothing too crazy. But some of them have, a Kreisel, which is a 270 to 360 degree curve. That's usually got a small uphill section as well. So if you make a mistake before that, it tends to compound going up the hill. But they all vary kind of wildly depending on where they were built, when they were built. You don't have to give East Germany and Russia or the USSR a whole lot of credit for anything, but they built the heck out of some tracks back in the 80s. There's one in Segula, Latvia that was up a 5-story stilt, basically like up. You take an elevator to the top and you run it back down. So yeah, the tracks kind of vary wildly, but usually you go down about 150 meters or so, give or take. It just depends on the track.
The Cortina, I think this is the 3rd time the Olympics have been in Cortina. So is this a new track, or is it
Yes.
It's a brand new track, a brand new layout?
Yeah. So, well, yes and no. The track itself is brand new. The old one was built in the way back in the day. They all used to just be built out of hand in the snow, and they carved something out of the snow, and that was your track. Eventually, when they went to concrete tracks that were kind of built in the ground, it turned into that, and then they just naturally iced the concrete track. So there ended up being a set course through Cortina. And the track kind of ran at that point, much like Lake Placid and some of these other places, were built into kind of what the snow track used to go, and it just kind of ran like that. So the one in Cortina kind of runs through town a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when they built the new track, the old track was built, and then eventually they put a cooling part underneath it. So the sides were not refrigerated. So if it got a little too warm, there just wouldn't be any ice on the sides. And if you hit the wall, you sparks or whatever. But the new track has been built either on top or kind of along most of the old track, in and around that area. So there's some new sections. A lot of the track name, like the curve names and things like that, come from the old track names and things like that. So there's definitely a level of history that's been built into the track. The folks in Cortina were very proud of their old track. They stopped using that right around 2010 or so, give or take. And so this track is kind of a point of pride for the people in the area there. A lot of the Cortina bobsleigh clubs already rearing and ready to go once these Olympics are over. As my friend John Morgan said at one point, this is the first Olympics we've had in a while that's gone, really since Lake Placid, where we've gone to a place where there's like a history of sliding that predates the Olympics coming in. Sarajevo, Calgary, pretty much everywhere else built the track brand new, kind of for the Olympics. This is obviously a new track for the Olympics, but it's in the same location and the same place as a lot of these the old Olympic track was. And also, Cortina hosted the one year that there wasn't bobsleigh in the Olympics. It was Squaw Valley. I think it was 1960. And Squaw Valley did not have bobsleigh in the Olympics. Cortina held the World Championships that year out there because there was not Olympic bobsleigh here.
So why did they not? Why was there no bobsleigh that?
They did not want to build a track.
They just didn't want to spend the dough.
Yeah, they just didn't want to do it. They didn't want to try it. So there's just no bobsleigh there. Okay. And so it got moved out.
I've got a very basic question, but I've always wondered about it. When you're doing the 4-man sled, once those two guys in the middle hop in the sled, is their work done, or do they actually
make
a difference done.
It's mostly done. I mean, their main job once they're in is to get down as low as they can and be aerodynamically out of the way. And that's really kind of come on in the last, I'm going to say the last few years, but I mean, we're talking 125 years of bobsled. When I say in the last few years, I mean like the last 35 or so. There's really been an extra effort. You know, you watch like even the Calgary games, guys are getting their heads down, but they're not really like getting like super, super low. Some of the top teams were, but a lot of guys, you kind of saw heads. The teams that are doing it right, you got these giant guys getting in basically a bathtub, and they're getting super low and super down there. And their main job is not so much to kind of try to lean to the corners and stuff like that. Their main job is just effectively get out of the way. But, you know, the brakeman in the back, his only job at the end is to, you know, pull the brakes. But it is getting in the sled is really their main goal after they push it. And what you see when you're watching the races, they'll have a push time that'll pop up and then a velocity afterward. That velocity is just as important, if not more important, than the start time. Because what you'll have is guys that can start real fast, but if they don't get in the sled just right, anything that's not going forward is scrubbing off speed. So the guys are trying to get in, as hard as it is to do, get in quietly and not get in a way that's going to move the sled this way. You want to try to keep it moving forward. So you'll see sometimes guys with a top 3 or 4 start time, but like a 10th quickest start velocity, and that's effectively means that they did kind of a bad job getting in the sled. So, but once that's done, everyone in the back behind the pilot, their job's pretty much done until they cross the line.
Now, was there not a pretty significant situation in Vancouver in 2010? Was that the bobsled or was that the luge? I seem to
that was luge. The Georgian slider came off the curve, and there's a lot of there's a lot of people still bring that up, obviously. But the thing to really know about that is that it wasn't so much the track itself. We have people that come off the final curve and hit that wall all the time. Even today, the speed was a factor. All that was a factor. When you build a track, do what they call icing in. Basically, they run the water down to get all the ice in. The walls are not 90-degree parallel. When they put the ice in, they kind of curve it in a little bit. That's in part so when you get up by the wall, you hit the wall, but you kind of drift back out and stuff like that. Some tracks are more perpendicular than others. That one was icing a little bit. So when he hit it, he didn't hit a teed off wall. He hit a small ramp. And so he hit that and went up. Realistically, had he hit that wall 3 meters in either direction, probably fine. Pretty bruised up, probably fine. But yeah, that was since then they still to this day run lower down than they used to or than they anticipated. They don't run from the very, very top anymore for luge. They do for bobsled and skeleton. They still go from the very top.
Skeleton's at the top? Yeah.
So skeleton runs only wherever bobsled runs because they use the tracks.
They use the tracks
to start. Yeah, they use the grooves that are cut for bobsled. And for skeleton, you have your option of whichever one you want to use and whatever side you want to start or whatever. But yeah, skeleton goes wherever bobsled goes.
Would you rather be on the skeleton sled or the bobsled?
Ooh.
Or the luge, maybe.
Luge, absolutely not. I am too round in my stomach to see over my stomach and see what's going on there. Probably bobsled, but that's more because, I'd much rather just let someone else drive me down. Driving would be a little more hinky. I would rather crash doing skeleton. If you crash doing skeleton, you're going to have a lot of bruises. That's going to be it. You're going to maybe a concussion because your head's out, whatever. Bobsled, when you go over, in forming, you now have 1,300 pounds of weight and force slapping your head on the wall when you come out of a curve. Yeah, nobody thinks about that. They think, okay, well, the sled's right there, whatever. Especially the pilot whose head is up and has really nowhere to go below because everyone's crowded in behind you. You have nowhere to go. So a lot of times you see guys like their head just tilted way over in the ice and stuff like that. They come over, they'll crack their head on the wall a little bit or whatever. And then luge is just different because bobsled and skeleton, the runners are rounded. Luge, the runners are sharp. So if you oversteer, overcorrect, you can turn a lot harder into a wall. So the impact tends to be a little harder. And so, yeah, if I were just going down nice and safe, probably a bobsled. If I knew I was crashing at some point, probably skeleton. I'll leave luge to the lugers. They're all different league.
Yeah, I just know. I think if anyone follows like what Jesse Lumsden was doing, like any Tie-Cat fan, 2014 Sochi was just horrifically awful. I felt so bad for him and Justin Cripps on their crash. Like they were doing so well, and then they just had that crash.
I mean, Cripps got his back in 2018. He won the gold. Cripps has a great story about that. He tied for gold with Francesco Friedrich, who Friedrich is legitimately the greatest bobsledder to ever bobsled, hands down. But Cripps comes across the finish line, and when you're in a sled, there's a clock up that you can look up and see, and it's got your time and then a number, and the number tells you what position you're in. Cripps is the last one down. He crosses the line. Looks up. He sees one. He looks ahead and he sees hanging over Francesco Friedrich holding up the one. Super excited. And his first thought, he told me later, he goes, my first thought was, man, Franz is really happy for me. That's pretty cool. And he was happy because they had tied. But yeah, Cripps is one of the very good dudes in the sport too. He's by far just one of the nicest people you'll meet. He's out there coaching now and everything like that. And he's just a good dude, very, very humble guy for a guy that's accomplished as much as he has. Lumsden as well. They're all, that whole Canadian team generally.
You think Jesse Lumsden's like hanging around CFL guys being like, hey, do you want to come play You could also bobsled.
I would love it if
Take Tie-Cat. You could also bobsled.
I mean, if he's not, Keaton's going to be right there. Like, hey, look, I'm in the Olympics right now. Like, you guys could be here hanging out with me. I hope so. I really, in my heart of hearts, would love it if this pipeline continues because it really, for when it highlights the CFL to a point, because every time you've got a CFL guy in the Olympics, there's stories about the CFL guy in the Olympics. In this case, we have effectively 4 of them that are all there. And then, you've got Lumsden kind of helping out. It's cool having that. It's good for the CFL. It's good for the Canadian bobsled program. It puts a lot of eyes from one side or the other in the other direction. It can't hurt having one of the biggest events on the planet at any given time, having people hearing about the CFL. It just can't.
Sure. Well, the 3 Down Nation article for Keaton's resigning was like Bobsledder resigns with the Tie-Cats, right? Like that's great. I love it.
And he had a great season this year. I mean, personally, I think he should have been used more. That's just me. Well,
still should have some other Tie-Cat receivers, but we'll talk about that later.
I think his longest reception was at like 30-something yards this year. It was cool seeing him out there, doing his thing and getting some targets. And it's fun seeing those guys that you see doing the bobsleigh stuff from my side anyway. Also doing the CFL thing, but also if you're a CFL person, it's cool seeing them. You turn on the Olympics, there's Keaton Brugling pushing a sled. So again, I love that there's a back and forth with it. I like that it's continually a thing now for the last 16 years or whatever now. And would love it if it just kept being a thing,
Oh, what's our chances here in the Olympics? Men's, well, you know what? It's just not men. Women are also sliding.
Yes. Yeah.
How are we doing for going into Olympics for Canada?
Hasn't been a great World Cup season for the Canadians. However, the women came on real strong right at the end. Cynthia Appia did not have a great World Cup season, but she's a big game performer, and I expect a lot out of her. Melissa Ludholz can always surprise. She also didn't have any big stand. She had a couple big races at the end. All the Canadian women did very well at the end of the season, and that's when you want to be good, right? It's just like going into the Grey Cup playoffs, right? You go to the CFL playoffs, and you want to be playing. It doesn't matter if you're a third seed. If you're playing better than the other teams ahead of you at that time, you got a good chance. Cynthia, especially in monobob, is phenomenal. Melissa's very good as well. Bianca Ribby's another North America Cup person who came in, had a great NAC season, won most of her races, and then went to the final race of the season and outslid a lot of sliders. She did very well and kind of solidified with her run. It was her and one of the Swiss women contending for that. X number of nations get 3 sleds in the Olympics. For women's bobsleigh, I believe, is for 2 women, it's 3 sleds. 3 nations get 3 sleds. And it's between Switzerland and Canada. And Bianca just came, not out of nowhere, but it was close with her and one of the Swiss girls. And she put down a monster second run, picked up 4 or 5 spots, and basically slid her way into the Olympics.
Nice.
Yeah, she's a Calgary firefighter as well.
I was going to ask, are any of the women's teams have a football background? Like, are they playing any of the, from the various women's tackle programs? Are there linebackers or receivers or anything that have made the transition?
I don't believe so. I think you got one. I think Skylar Steven, I believe, you got one woman that has a hockey background, and then I can't remember the backgrounds of the other ones. Cynthia, everyone else, especially on the pilot side, have been around for a while. Cynthia and Melissa were both very accomplished break women before going to the front of the sled. And I really expect a lot out of the Canadian women for these Olympics. I think it's gonna be a tough battle for medals, especially in 2 women. The 3 German sleds are very, very good. The 3 American sleds are very good. We have Kaylee Humphreys, who won a bunch of.
Is she still racing?
Yes.
I feel like she's been racing for
She has. And she's still winning gold medals is the thing. And she took a year off to have a kid, came back and just got progressively better and has been crushing it the last few races. Really, this whole season, she's been sliding very well, but she's another that's peaking at the right time. So Kaylee's going to be right there again. She's your reigning monobob world champ, and she just had a great last few races. I expect her to be in it. So it's going to be really like Germany, United States, Australia's got someone in monobob that'll be very good, Bree Walker. Austria's Cotty Barrel is going to be very good. So it is a really stacked field, but the 3 of them, Cynthia, Bianca, and Melissa, are all really good pilots that can put down a few runs and have a shot at an Olympic medal. I don't see why it wouldn't happen. The men's side is going to be a little more tricky. Just as far as medals go, Germany's got 3 guys that have dominated the World Cup this year. Absolutely dominated. Hansi Lochner won the most gold medals this year. Francesco Friedrichs, the most decorated bobsledder of all time. He's won the gold medals that the other guys didn't win. He won. He's just been there most of the season. Adam Amore is the 3rd pilot who is all of a sudden just winning gold medals. He'd been winning medals, but been behind these 2 greats of the sport and has come on strong. Taylor Ross is going to be probably your better bet in the 4-man. He had a really decent last few races in 4-man bobsled. And he'll have a shot. Again, I don't know if there's maybe 1 or 2 guys outside of the Germans that are going to have a shot at a medal, realistically. But I think you're going to see, at the very least, a top 10 run out of the Canadians. Don't really know as much as far as he just doesn't have a lot of what I'm going to call big game experience. He just hasn't been under the lights and camera. It's just different when you get to a World Cup event from like a lower tier event. So to kind of jump into the Olympics where you have literally the whole world watching you. You have all the lights, the cameras, all the TV, all the media, everybody there. But, I mean, he knows how to win races. He's got a great team behind him. I think he can definitely surprise some people at the Olympics. I would be shocked if there wasn't one, at least not 2 Canadian sleds in the top 10. But yeah, I think cracking the medals in men's bobsled it's going to be hard for anybody not from Germany at this point. Brad Hall from Great Britain's got a shot. Frankie Del Duca in the 2-man especially has got a shot. Chris Warren from the United States in the 4-man might have a shot. Marcus Treichel for Austria, and there's Michael Vogt from Switzerland. There's a handful of guys that contended for medals this year, but again, aside from Brad Hall and Patrick Baumgartner won a medal from Italy. But that's it. Like, otherwise, Germany had the podium on lockdown all season. So, but I think on the women's side, there's a legitimate chance there for that to happen.
Okay.
Excellent.
Have you got more questions, folks? Or
Well, I just want to know when can we watch bobsled?
coming up next week.
Next week.
So not this coming week. It'll start on, I'm going through my head here. I don't have the schedule in front of me. We start off with luge every time, and we run through luge right through about the middle to end of the week. And then we'll hit skeleton on the weekend. And then I believe it's Sunday we start with monobob. If you give me 1 second, I can get it pulled up here. But it's coming up here sooner rather than later. But yeah, luge always starts off. And actually for luge, you've got Emberly Susko is a young talent who has been phenomenal. I think she's going to surprise some people this year that haven't been watching the sports. She's really young. The whole Canadian team for luge is wildly young. I think their oldest slider is like 21 or 22, and it feels like she's been around forever. So you're looking at right here, we have bobsleigh starts on February 15th. Women's monobob will start 4 a.m. East Coast time. If you want to watch it live, it'll be on TV later on, obviously. And then two-man is on the 16th. Women's monobob medal runs is at 1 p.m. Eastern on the 16th. And then we go to two-man medal runs on the 17th. There's a little bit of a break for training for 4-man and 2-woman. 2-woman starts back up on the 20th, and then they run the 20th and 21st. 21st and 22nd is 4-man, and then we have the closing ceremonies.
So
Bing, bam,
right to
done.
the
Yeah.
end.
Right.
Flying right through it. Yeah, there's pretty much sliding every day except for 2.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so get it on early, get it on often. There's going to be a lot of great sliding going on.
The other thing I was going to ask you, Ken, is if somebody's been inspired by what you're saying here and wants to learn more about it, is there a resource you can suggest, or
Really,
where do
just
they go to?
if you're interested in a combine or anything like that, and you're in Canada, reach out. Bobsleigh Canada Skeleton is the official name. If you just Google them, I forget their actual website. I think it's BCS or something like that. But look up Bobsleigh Canada Skeleton. They'll have combines, they'll have tryouts, things like that. Here in the States, they have a virtual combine they do where basically you submit all your stuff and they kind of get you in. Then they'll get you in for like an in-person deal or whatever. But there's never enough sliding athletes. Especially if you're a woman or a man and you want to get into the sliding sports, every nation needs to be, unless you're Germany. They got plenty.
I feel like Germany's
Canada,
like that NASCAR.
well, it is. So
Yeah.
Germany has 4 tracks. You know, they've got 4 tracks of their own.
And we have one.
Canada has 1. The United States has 2. Again, if I hit the Powerball, Canada will have 2. Yeah, that is my pledge on this show right now. If I ever happen upon millions of dollars, one of the first things I'm doing is getting that track rebuilt in Calgary. I'll tell you right now. But yeah, there's never enough sliding talent. And I think people don't know that's an option. I know growing up as a kid, I had no idea I could just become a bobsledder when I got done with baseball. You know, no one tells you that kind of thing until like you just see it on TV and they bring it up. That's how British bobsleigh and skeleton have gotten so good at skeleton, is they saw Amy Williams win a gold medal. People got inspired by that. And now the British skeleton program alone has hundreds of people sending stuff in, wanting to try to get into skeleton. And they whittle them down from there. And that's why they have such a good program in part. They get the top of hundreds of athletes. If you're a top level athlete at whatever it is you do, there's a chance you could be good at pushing a sled, maybe good at skeleton, or what, you know, luge, you usually got to get in a little younger, but bobsled and skeleton both. Most of those sports, the people involved came from somewhere else. And if you just want to give it a shot, reach out again, just Google Bobsleigh Canada Skeleton. They'll be glad to have you out and at least talk to you about what's involved in the sport.
Or like watch for Jesse Lumsden at your training camp.
Yeah, if Jesse happens to show up, just go talk to him. He'll be glad to talk. He'll be glad to go over everything with you. I'm sure he'll get you the number of who you need to talk to.
I'm gonna finish this off with one why question for you, because almost all the sliding sports make sense to me. But the one thing I've never understood, 2-man luge. Why?
It was the thing. Like, your sleds, I've got a flyer sled downstairs. You put 4 people on it. So it was the thing. You'd have 2 people on the sled. Eventually just kind of turned into what it is now. But you used to slide with 2 people on a bigger sled back in the day when you were a kid. Why not do it now?
So why was skeleton banned but not luge?
It wasn't banned. It just wasn't a thing. So the first 2 Olympics that we're in were both in St. Moritz. We're in 24 or 28. And then again in 48. And it was in part because they have something there called the Cresta Run, which is a separate track from the bobsled track that they still to this day run. It's called Cresta. It's a lot like Skeleton. It's not exactly Skeleton, but it came from there and it was a thing. And so it was in the Olympics then, and then, but only there. And then then it just wasn't for a long time. And then 2002, there had been a IBSF World Cup skeleton tour forever. And since there had been a World Cup tour, then people have been doing skeleton like that forever. And it just they got it back. IBSF got it into the Olympics. And then it's been a thing ever since. Luge broke away from the Bobsled and Skeleton Federation back in the 50s, I believe. Their first Olympics was, I believe, 64. And that was, they became their own federation with their own stuff, which kind of makes sense when you think about the differences between luge and then bobsled and skeleton, as far as the start areas and things like that. So yeah, but that's why the skeleton took a little bit longer. They kind of had their own thing going on, but once it made sense to get them in, they got them in 2002, and it's weird. It would be weird not having them now, you know?
Yeah, they're very exciting.
Oh, very much. Yes. One of my favorites.
Well, thank you for bringing all that information to us, Ken. That's great.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Anytime. Hopefully some of our fans, if we have any, will maybe enjoy the Olympics, the slide sports a bit more from what you told us. And
absolutely.
All of our families are now well informed.
All right. So what we normally do now is basically, we're pretty much done, so we say our goodbyes. And any last thoughts? And then if there's anywhere that you do any social media that you want people to be able to follow you and get even more of the wisdom that's been flowing forth tonight. So MJ, you go first.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, thank you to Ken for coming. This has been such a treat, and I'm so excited for Olympics. I also want to say that it's Black History Month, and the CFL teams have put together really good social media videos. There's lots of players posting about it. Watch a video, read an article, read a book by a Black author, buy something from a Black creator. And then you can find me tweeting. No, I'm not tweeting. What am I doing on Blue Sky? I am just skeeting about
biscuits.
Posting.
I'm just posting away about heated rivalry and Olympics and CFL free agency over there. You can find me at Sports and Plants. I'm posting free agency frenzy on Instagram and the dead zone that is Threads, I guess.
All righty. How about you, Ken?
At thekenchilds.com on Blue Sky, at thekenchilds pretty much everywhere else. There was somebody else had Ken Childs when I first got on Twitter. So that was a Ken Childs. I am the Ken Childs. So that's how that happened. So at thekenchilds.com on Blue Sky is where I post most of my stuff. It's where I post all of my live stuff for Bobsled, Skeleton, and Luge. That will start Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time is when the first runs of men's luge kick off. But all winter long, every season, we got 3 years and 50 weeks where there's not the Olympics. And during those times, we still have sliding sports stuff happening. Even during the off season, I'll have probably a dozen athlete interviews going on during that time as well. I will also start randomly posting about Stampeders games and other CFL games as they're happening, just because it's what I do. Yeah, and then slideandonice.com is the website where I have all my stories, it's where all the interviews will go and all that. I link to that pretty much anywhere I can. So yeah, at thekenchilds.com on Blue Skies where you can find me the most.
Good. Thank you very much. And echo what MJ said. Thank you for joining us and letting us know all about this stuff. It's fantastic to find out. I'm also right at the end here. I'm going to put you on the spot. You said that the men are a long shot, but the women might be able to medal. So yes or no, are Canadian women on the podium this Olympics?
I think you're going to get one.
Good stuff. I like it. You heard it here first, folks. Okay, GT, how about you?
I've got nothing to finish it off. It is a great time to be alive with sports. Everything's going on. Our league just changed every player, it seemed like, over the course of the last 4 days. And then I was following all of that. And then the NBA happened, and I was like, I'm overwhelmed. So if you haven't followed that, it makes the CFL look like nothing, because the amount of movement there is unbelievable. Anyway, that's me, and I'm at GT Barnum on Blue Sky. And, occasionally you'll find me there, and that's the best I can give.
Okay, thank you much for another week or another month there. And I, of course, am Oldman Shoutingatclouds. You get me on Blue Sky at oldman-sac.bluesky.social. The show is on X and on Blue Sky. And so long since I've been doing this. We were on Instagram now, all as the CFL Outsiders, and Threads now as the CFL Outsiders. You can also catch me on the CFL subreddit as Oldman Shoutingclouds. And please, on any of those spots or right here, if you got something to say, leave a comment. We love to hear them. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great chance, because we're probably have 2 more of these monthly ones, and then we'll all basically be back into the preseason and going every week again. And we don't want you to miss any of that. You know, we feel we are so concerned about you and making sure you get your weekly dose of the best football podcast in the universe here. So that's about it. Until next time, for our special guest Ken, and for MJ and GT, this is Oldman saying, get the hell off my lawn.